I know what I'm about to tell you sounds absolutely insane, but I swear it's true. I've never told anyone this story before. I've kept it locked away in my mind for years. But after what happened recently, I can't keep it in anymore. I need to share this. It all started last Saturday afternoon, just like any other. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. The sun was barely setting, casting a soft orange glow through the window. The house was quiet, peaceful even. I'd just finished lunch and was zoning out when I noticed an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. Normally, I wouldn't pick up a call from someone I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it. Maybe it was the weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, the unease I couldn't shake. I had this sense that I had to. I picked up the phone, and there was nothing but static on the other end. It wasn't unusual at first, maybe a poor connection. But then I heard it. A voice. Distorted, muffled, like it was trying to break through some kind of barrier. It sounded like a child, a young girl, and for some reason, my mind immediately went back to my childhood. I froze. The words, when they came, sent a chill down my spine. It's time to get me out. I didn't know what to think. My heart started racing, and I felt my hands tremble as I held the phone. That voice that sounded familiar. Too familiar. But how? I hadn't heard it in years. And then it hit me. The voice belonged to the doll. The one my best friend and I had buried in the backyard when we were 8. That doll. The one we thought we'd gotten rid of. The one that had haunted me all these years. I hadn't thought about it in ages. My best friend and I, we were just kids. We didn't know why we did it, but one day, we found that creepy old doll, its porcelain face cracked, its clothes torn. It looked almost evil. We decided to bury it in the backyard, under the big oak tree where we played. I remember that day clearly. The dirt between my fingers, the warmth of the summer sun, and the feeling of something weighing heavily on my chest as we dug. We buried it, thinking we were getting rid of it forever, never imagining it would come back. After we buried the doll, strange things started happening around the house. Little things at first, doors that would creak open by themselves, shadows that seemed to move out of the corner of my eye. But I shrugged it off. Kids are imaginative, right? Still, something about that doll, about what we did, didn't sit right with me. Then, a few nights later, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my bedroom window. I wasn't sure if it was just a dream, or if I'd actually heard it. But when I checked, there was no one there. I thought I was imagining things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. It was as if something or someone was watching me. That night, I slept with the covers pulled up to my chin, too scared to look outside. The next day, I went into the backyard, and that's when I saw it. The dirt near the oak tree, where we had buried the doll, was disturbed. It was scattered like someone had been digging around it. I remember my heart pounding in my chest as I stood there, staring at the mess. There was no way anyone else had been back there, and yet, I felt like something was off. As time passed, the odd occurrences didn't stop. Objects in my room would go missing, and then reappear in places they shouldn't be. Once, I found my old doll sitting on my bed, staring at me with its cracked, lifeless eyes. I had burned it years ago. It shouldn't have been there. But there it was, like a reminder that it wasn't done with me. I tried to forget about it. I tried to move on. But the memories, the strange occurrences, kept haunting me. And now, that voice on the phone, it was like the doll had come back, demanding something. My heart was racing just thinking about it. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to face whatever it was. So, I grabbed a shovel and walked into the backyard. The night air was cold, and the darkness felt heavier than usual. The backyard, which once felt so familiar, now seemed wrong. I walked toward the oak tree, my feet dragging in the grass. When I reached the spot where we had buried the doll, I saw that the ground was disturbed again. The dirt was loose, as if someone or something had been digging. I felt a sickening wave of dread wash over me. I knelt down, my heart pounding in my chest, and I began to dig. The sound of the shovel hitting the dirt was oddly muffled in the silence of the night. Every shovelful of dirt felt heavier than the last. I had to know. I had to find it, whatever it was. And then I felt it, something hard beneath the dirt. I stopped, my hands shaking as I cleared away the last of the soil. There, lying in the hole, was the doll. But it was worse than I remembered. Its face was cracked and dirty, its eyes empty and hollow. The clothes were shredded, and it looked like it had been through hell. But what really freaked me out was the note tied around its neck. It wasn't just any note. It was a piece of old, yellowed paper, scribbled with jagged handwriting. I pulled it out and read the words, though my hands trembled so much I could barely hold it still. Take me home. I felt my breath catch in my throat. The note, the doll, it was like it had been waiting for me all these years.
But why?
What did it want? Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate steps. I whipped around, expecting to see someone, but there was no one there. The yard was empty, but the air felt thick, oppressive. I wasn't alone, I knew it. I heard that voice again. Get me out. It was then that I realized I wasn't just dealing with a doll. This was something else. Something much darker. And I had made a terrible mistake by digging it up. I grabbed the doll and ran back to the house, my heart pounding in my chest. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. I tried calling my best friend. She had been there with me when we buried the doll. I needed to tell her, needed to hear that I wasn't losing my mind. But the phone line was dead. That night was the longest night of my life. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the doll's face staring back at me. I felt its eyes on me, like it was right there in the room with me. And the voice that wouldn't stop. Get me out. When I woke up the next morning, everything was silent. The house was quiet. I went to check the backyard, half expecting the doll to be gone, but it wasn't. There was no sign of it. No note. Nothing. It was as if the whole thing had been some kind of twisted nightmare. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. It hadn't just disappeared. It was waiting, watching, like it had all those years ago. I could feel it, in the pit of my stomach, a heavy, cold presence that wouldn't go away. I still don't know what that thing was, or why it wanted me. But I'm telling you this, because I don't think I'm the only one. I'm not the only one who has buried something that should have stayed buried. And I know, without a doubt, that the doll is out there, waiting for me, waiting for someone else.